The Little Prince. Once upon a time, deep in the ocean, lived a king by the title of King Triton and his 7 daughters. The eldest daughter was named Athena, then Alana, Adela, Aquata, Arista, Andrina, and last but not least, Ariel. Queen Athena, King Triton's wife, had passed away when Ariel was very young. King Triton was devastated by the death of his wife and brought his daughters up very strictly because he did not want to lose another member of his family. All of his daughters followed the rules, except for Ariel. She was more adventurous than her sisters. She lived for excitement. She was fearless and full of curiosity. However, this curiosity and love for adventure would sometimes get her into trouble. Ariel had always dreamt of swimming to the surface and seeing the world for herself. Her sisters had told her tales of their times at surface, but she was never allowed to see it. Her father forbade his daughters from going to the surface until their 15th birthdays. There was still a year before Ariel would be allowed to go to the surface, and she couldn't resist the urge anymore. That night, when her family was asleep and the ocean was quiet, Ariel slipped out of her cloud bed and swiftly snuck out of the castle. The ghoulish waters sent shivers up her spine. She was alone now. The ocean was more eerie than she expected to be at night. She looked back at the castle as if she was asking herself if it was worth it. She quickly looked away and began to swim up towards the surface. As she swam towards the light of the moon, little did she know what was unfolding on the other side of the water. A monstrous storm was attacking the sea and the sailors. Rain was whipping down like nails, and streaky lightning emblazoned the sky. A boat of sailors jolted strongly from side to side. They held on for their lives as they started to tip to the left. One man's grip was not tight enough, and he was dragged towards the sharp waters. He wasn't just any man. He was a prince. Ariel, still oblivious to what was going on above, continued her way to the surface until something caught her eye. What could it be? She was the only one awake, and if someone were to see her, they might tell her father. The figure continued to come closer to her, and Ariel became more and more nervous, but her curious mind pushed her towards the silhouette. "It's a human!" Ariel said in amazement. A few hours later, the prince woke up in a sea of confusion. Pink plants hung from the ceiling, and the walls resembled those of a cave. The prince whispered to himself, "Could I have been miraculously saved and brought to this cave on land?" A silky baritone voice said, "That's a good guess, my boy, but you're not completely correct." From the corner of his eye, the prince watched a fleshy, lavender-skinned, white-haired woman who had 6 slimy octopus tentacles from the waist down coming his way. She went by the name Ursula. "You're not on dry land, my friend. Welcome to the ocean." In panic, the prince held his breath, making sure not to take in any water. He was as blue as his long, scaly tail. Ursula waited for him to calm down and brought him over to the crystal ball. She rubbed it with 4 of her tentacles, and an image swirled into view of a girl with blood-red hair. She was of evil beauty. As they watched the events unravel, Ursula explained that Ariel had rescued him, but not for his sake. However, to steal his human qualities and mermaid traits. "She couldn't have done this on her own. That little creature snuck into my lair and stole my precious potions, and when she was done, she left you here like a pile of fish bones," Ursula said angrily. "How do I become me again?" the prince cried. Ursula told the prince that she knew how to turn him back into a human, but there would be some consequences. He would lose his voice while in human form, and he would only have 10 minutes to find Ariel before he changed back. If he failed, he would be stuck as a merman for the rest of his life. She also noted that Ariel had forgotten one potion while performing the change, and if she touched the ocean water, she would turn back into a flopping fish. Once the prince regained consciousness after washing up on the shore, he stood up and brushed the sand off his body. He recognized where he was from the scenes in the crystal ball, and ran off the beach towards the marketplace. The prince ran through the crowd, squeezing between people and jumping to every open spot. There she was! Her red hair stood out like a painful hangnail. He dashed towards the thief, and when he reached her, Ariel's evil blue eyes widened. Open mouth, dropped jaw, and wrinkles of surprise on her forehead, Ariel was pulled by the prince out of the market. She struggled to escape his grip, but he was too strong. The prince threw Ariel like a fisherman to a bad fish back into the ocean where she belonged. He watched as Ariel's green tail replaced her legs, and she was pulled back by the waves. The prince then returned to his normal life and lived happily ever after. The end.